When President Biden won the election, immigration advocates breathed a collective sigh of relief. After all, President Trump entered the White House with the goal of reducing legal immigration by 63%. And by the end of his term, immigration in America was at its most restricted point in history. Meanwhile, the incoming Biden administration announced the most expansive pro immigration agenda of any president in decades. Unfortunately, President Biden is far from the open borders advocate both his critics and his supporters claim he is. He has continued to detain and deport recent crossers. Children are being held in law enforcement custody in violation of federal law, and it's still nearly impossible to come to America, legally or otherwise. Though both parties benefit from the myth that Republicans oppose immigration and Democrats support it, neither party truly supports free migration and understands its myriad benefits. America is a nation of immigrants, and immigrants make America great, a point on which the majority of Americans agree. Immigration advocates who supported Biden must demand that he follow through on campaign promises to reverse Trump-era anti-immigration policies and open up legal pathways to immigration.
Republicans for years, including the last 4 years, did nothing to help with this nation's immigration issues. The bottom line is this: the president now has solutions, and Republicans have excuses. Republicans are not interested in solving this problem. If they were, they would welcome a conversation about the immigration bill. President Biden has tapped Vice President Harris to lead the federal government's work with our partners in Central America to root out the causes of migration. And already we're seeing the administration taking action to bring humanity and order back to this system. They've established a government effort to identify more personnel in shelters where children can be cared for adequately and appropriately. They've sent a strong message to the region that now is not the time to come while they establish processes for people to apply from the region. And they put into place COVID protocols for Border Patrol and HH workforce and for immigrants coming into the country. Americans want to see solutions on immigration. Just like with the COVID package, Republicans are ignoring the will of the American people and their constituents and refusing to solve this problem.
Hello, welcome to another Millennial Minute. I'm Julia Sun. During the Trump presidency, there was a lot of outrage about the treatment of migrants at our southern border. With a different president in the White House, though, it seems like the only thing that changed is there are even more people waiting in camps just outside of our border. Is the Biden administration's handling of the border crisis passable? Well, you've already heard from our guests, both from our friends of our show, Nicole, Brener, Schmitz, a Democratic strategist, and Murti, Executive Director of Feminists for Liberty. Welcome to the show, ladies. Good to see you both. Look, in the last few months, a lot of children have been showing up at the border, probably more than before, and they are still being kept in pretty bad conditions. Is Biden making the same mistakes that Trump did? I'll start with you, Nicole.
No, he's not making the same mistakes, but it's also not a problem that can be solved overnight. They've already put in new protocols to make sure that these children have better living conditions. Certainly, we're seeing a large number crossing, and they've sent a strong message that they should not be doing that right now. Let us get some of these new protocols into place. But the reality is, if the Republicans wanted to work on this with the Biden administration, they would come to the table and have an honest discussion about an immigration bill, like the Problem Solvers Caucus is attempting to do in Congress.
And Kat, you don't believe President Biden is doing a great job. So what do you think President Biden can make the situation at our border a little bit better?
There are any number of things that President Biden can do. He kind of started out on a positive note, reversing the Trump-era Muslim travel bans, but basically everything else he's done has been to keep or double down on Trump-era policies, including when it comes to childhood detention. Some of the policies that he's changed around there have actually incentivized more families to split up and send their children across the border unaccompanied. And so we've actually seen an increase in children crossing the border unaccompanied since Biden came to power. There's just any number of things that are happening that unfortunately tell us that even though Biden came into office promising to be pro-immigration, he really hasn't been. And this is something that we see a lot from Democratic candidates, unfortunately. It's not untrue that President Obama actually ended up deporting more people than President Trump, despite President Trump's virulent anti-immigrant rhetoric. And I worry that Democratic supporters of immigration are just simply not holding the Biden administration to the same high standards that they should be holding all administrations to.
Nicole, what's your response to that? Double down.
I think a lot of Democrats are pushing the Biden administration. We've seen the Hispanic caucus be very vocal about their concerns. Certainly, we have seen the number of children crossing increase. There is a seasonal aspect to that, but part of it is there are new protocols being put in place by this administration that is making it a better crossing for these kids. So while he's discouraging them to do it until all the protocols are in place, they're seeing that it's a bit safer right now to do so. So there's the numbers are increasing is not indicative of completely of the Biden administration's policies on it. This is a matter that takes time to turn over and to shift, and it can't happen just overnight.
See, from my point of view, it just seems like no administration has gotten immigration right. Mm-hmm. Is there even a real answer to this issue, Kat? What do you think?
Well, I think that this election certainly wasn't really won on policy grounds, but if there was one policy that stood out, it was immigration. Biden, again, was the most pro-immigration candidate on the debate stage, and Trump pushed the most restrictionist immigration policy of any recent president. So people definitely were supporting immigration. We've seen support for immigration in poll after poll after poll rise, particularly during the Trump presidency, but it continues to rise. And we're just not seeing those policies come into place. Overwhelmingly, people tend to believe Democratic rhetoric that they're pro-immigration, but there's so many things that the Democrats could do if they actually wanted to open up immigration. Number one thing is just to make sure that there's more legal pathways. Biden really hasn't reversed any of the Trump era restrictions on legal immigration. In some places, has actually doubled down on them. I would like to see him really open up those legal pathways, including for refugee and asylum visas, as well as really address the issue of these children in these camps who are still being held for the most part way past the legal limits, alone and in very horrible conditions.
Yeah, Nicole, you're a Democratic strategist still. I would say among all the American voters, people probably care the most about the economy and the COVID relief. That being said, border crisis is an important issue. Some say that if President Biden doesn't handle it well, it could cost him the re-election. What do you think?
I think that the Biden administration is focused on handling this well to make sure that it's handled well, not because they're just concerned about their reelection. It certainly is a huge concern of people, but when we look at the polling, including the polls that came out this week about the Biden administration, the concern is over what is happening to these children, and that is something that the Biden administration is trying to address right now. They restarted the Central American Minors Program so children can apply for protection from their home country. They are making an effort to identify more shelters and places where children can be adequately cared for. It's unfair to say that they're not trying to quickly address this system. And then, to Kat's point, look at other ways that we can have legal immigration happen in this country and what makes sense going forward as we come out of this pandemic and into the next year.
Kat, last thing, if you were to propose one thing that we or the administration can do to help these children, what would it be?
Absolutely. I'd say that that the administration needs to reverse the policies that are incentivizing families to split up. What we're seeing right now is an increase in families that are coming together up until the Mexican border and then splitting up just in hopes that some of them will be able to legally get into this country. If that's not addressed, we're going to have this problem keep getting worse and worse and worse. What we really need to do is stick by that rhetoric that families belong together and help those families cross into the U.S. and apply for asylum here together.
Yeah, difficult conversation, but I feel we got to have it. Thank you both for being here, Nicole and Kat, and thank you for watching Millennial Minute. I'm Julia Sun. I'll see you next time.